You're listening to the Back Porch Talk podcast. Danny and Jason had many discussions and debates on the back porch while making pivotal investment moves with assets. That's right, with trading cards. They welcome you to the back porch and right into those discussions about current sports news with a fresh and unique twist. So come on and join us. Welcome to the Back Porch Talk podcast. I'm your host, Jason.
Host, Danny.
Fans, we got a full show for you today. First, right into the NBA playoffs. A little bit about Major League Baseball. Into it, Danny. The NBA playoffs is fantastic. Boy, last night, the NBA was on fire. New York Knicks, Philadelphia 76ers game, man. That was an instant classic. But it followed up with the Lakers against the Nuggets, another instant classic. But first, right into the Philly New York game, Danny. I looked at this game, especially in the fourth quarter, and I really thought Philly had this game. When the three was made, and Maxey and the guys, they just took the lead. I thought it was done for. Then lo and behold, Brunson hits a three. It was eerily familiar to the experience that Joel Embiid had with the Toronto Raptors when Kawhi made that three in the corner. Brunson made a three from the side pocket, if you will, bounced on the rim, eventually goes in. Next thing you know, they take the ball out. And based upon what 76ers was saying at post-game, hey, they were trying to call a timeout to advance the ball. They didn't get a timeout. Next thing you know, the Knicks steal the ball. And it goes around, and Dante DiVincenzo misses the three. Rebound is made, and then next thing you know, he gets the ball again, and he goes for another three to put them over on top, man. Danny, this was just a hell of a game, man. The atmosphere was bananas, and the Knicks got something going here. OG Anunoby had 10 points. Hartenstein, who had the key rebound, man, 14 points. He was that energy guy, man. Same thing with Josh Hart, energy guy, 21 points. 15 rebounds by Josh Hart, man. DiVincenzo, as I mentioned, 19 points. Brunson, 24 points. But I will say this. Brunson is being outplayed, in my opinion, by Maxey, man. Tyrese Maxey is having a series for you. And if the other teammates of Philadelphia can show up besides Maxey, beside Embiid, who had 34, walking on one leg, basically. Tobias Harris only had 10 points. Lowry only has 8 points, but Lowry's a little over. We'll give him a little pass there. Oubre only have 4 points. Where are the others for the Philadelphia 76ers? That's the question. Danny, what say you about this Philadelphia 76ers New York Knicks game?
Thing at the end of that game is knowing you needed a shot. You talking about where are people? Where's Buddy Hield? You made the deal for Buddy Hield.
Exactly.
And they're not even using him.
15 minutes, 2 points.
For a guy that can shoot it as well as Buddy Hield, in these type of scenarios where you're grinding games out and you need someone that knock a shot down, you can play off Maxey and Embiid. That's Buddy Hield. He got, when he arrived in Philly, he started off hot. And ever since then, he's just like gone to the ether, man. He's gone. He hasn't done anything. And Oubre is another one, man, that's been killing him because they need production out of him. Because you look in game one, Kyle Lowry was the third leading scorer. And that's not okay. So according to Joel Embiid, they still gonna win the series. I look at on the New York Knicks side of the ball too. Philadelphia's been playing Brunson pretty well. Like they say, series don't start until home team loses.
Yep, sure, true.
So they're heading to Philly now, and we'll see how the Sixers bounce back after this heartbreaker.
Well, fingers crossed the Bucks do something tonight. We'll see what happens game two. But talk about game one. Dame Dollar showed up more so in the first half, 35 in the first half, didn't score in the second half. The Bucks prevail. The others of the Bucks stepped up in the second half. Middleton had a big game. We'll see what the Pacers do, what adjustments they're going to have for this particular game tonight. But got to give props to Doc Rivers. They had some time throughout the week where they had practice. There were reports that they had 3 or 4 practices in a week's time. Beforehand, they only had 3 or 4 practices over months. So this was an opportunity for Doc to not only scout the Pacers and see what went wrong throughout the course of the season, but also to implement a good defensive strategy and offensive strategy against the Pacers. So game 2 tonight. But on the second game or the last game of the night, last night, that being the Lakers and Denver Nuggets, man, another instant classic. Let me just say, I didn't see this one coming. Danny. I thought Lake Show had this game. They were up 20 points. Next thing you know, Denver Nuggets, they rallied. AD, 32 points. LeBron, 26 points. D'Lo, man, he had a game for you, man. You talking about 3-pointers? Was just on fire. First half, he just couldn't miss, man. Ends up for 23, 7 for 11 from 3-pointers. And then the others just didn't show up. Hachimura didn't show up, 3 points. Reeves didn't show up, 9 points. Had no bench production whatsoever with Prince the only one scoring from the bench. This was just a game that the Lakers, they were playing very well, up 20 in the third quarter. Next thing you know, as I mentioned, Nuggets come back and Jamal Murray goes ahead and hits a game winner, man. The first game winner in Denver Nuggets playoff history. And so Jokic had a game for you, man. I think there was a stat there that he's the only player in NBA history with 20 games and 10 rebounds in a game in the playoffs. He ends up with 27 points, 20 rebounds, 10 assists, and he just was lighting up, man. And at this juncture, I just don't know what the Lakers can do to beat the Denver Nuggets. And I think they're trying to figure that out too. What say you, Daniel, about this Denver Nuggets-Lakers game?
Jason, this looks just like last year. Yep. All these games, Lakers are leading or it's close, and they just can't close it. And last night, they're up, when you mentioned they're up 20 in the third quarter, and then they went ice cold for a stretch there where Caldwell Pope had this hard dunk, it got him high, and they just kept making buckets, and the Lakers were going down empty-handed. And going into the fourth, the same thing happened, man. It was like back and forth, but the Lakers weren't scoring, and the Nuggets would score 3 or 5 in a row, and ultimately it cost them in the end. And two, there's something to be said about that altitude with LeBron, as old as he is, and getting tired, and those legs get tired. And so going home, you'll hopefully see what if they can make some adjustments as well, Darvin Ham and team. But and there's something to be said too about Jamal Murray, man. They talk about playoff Jimmy. Jamal Murray's a tough cat in the playoffs.
That he is, yep.
And when you remember when he hurt his knee and he wasn't there, and they went through that lull, now he's back and everything, they got the championship. But he is like ice water. And last night showed that he was struggling, and then he still had all the confidence in the world in that fourth quarter and took over and ended up hitting that winning shot over AD, who was karma's something else, man. When you talk about that defensive player of the year and you don't want to get your eye busted at the end, you can't. This is something I'm like, man, of course he would make those comments about the NBA not liking him, and it's not the NBA that votes for you for defensive player of the year. And he's the one in that situation where Jamal Murray knocks a shot down at the buzzer. very unfortunate because the Lakers had double-digit leads in both games. So technically they could be up 2-0, but they're not. So it's a shoulda, coulda, woulda game. And now you go home and you got to win game 3. Otherwise, this is a wrap.
Man, I think it might be a wrap right now. I think Lakers could get game 3, but after that, it could be a gentleman's sweep, quite honestly.
Mm-hmm.
And speaking of fouls, kind of going back to the New York Knicks, Philadelphia 76ers game, I mean, obviously there was a lot of talk about whether or not Maxey was fouled or what have you. Think he did get fouled to a certain degree, but do you call it in the midst of, it's kind of like, do you want to bail him out? Because to me, it didn't seem like, I saw a couple of different angles and it didn't seem like he was fouled hard. It was like the New York Knicks were just being aggressive and he wasn't. And so I don't know. Do you call it same thing on the Lakers side? Do you call certain foul? Is this the playoffs? Now, I think the NBA, they do have to really look at this refereeing in the off season. I think the second half of this season, the regular season, they made a concerted effort to really let things go, to let them play things out, so that way it can be a ramp up to the playoffs. And I don't think you can do that, man, purely because the NBA teams are used to calls, used to a certain play in the first half of the season. For you to automatically change it and then change it again in the playoffs. So I think the NBA is going to have to do something in the offseason to really, really hone in on these calls, man, hone in on the play in the calls of the referee. So we'll see what happens there.
And to that point, Jason, I think that's across all leagues. NFL, same thing. Pass interference calls. How many times, or holding, or it's the same conversation every year, and it goes to the fact of MLB. Even they've been having these conversations about the umpires and the strike zones and who's calling what. And I think it's a little more abstract than Major League Baseball, being an umpire and your strike zone and how that works. But it's the consistency part. So if you're not consistent, then it's hard for the players to adjust and understand what is what. And when you get into those tight situations, that's where a lot of emotion is running high. So if you're making inconsistent calls, then obviously some people are going to call you out in the press.
And then as we're talking about the MLB, great segue as, man, these Milwaukee Brewers are playing well. They are playing well, man. Listen, we are first in the Central Division right now at 14-7, opening up a series here against the Pittsburgh Pirates. So a divisional rival. This is going to be very intriguing. And gotta say, man, even with the managerial change, man, these Milwaukee Brewers are doing something. Even with the offseason moves, the Brewers are doing something here. So hopefully it can last throughout the course of the season. It's a very long season. But nonetheless, Brewers are in first place. What say you about these Milwaukee Brewers?
Jason, their pitching has been great, man. And they kind of have a patchwork staff right now. And so they've been making the most, like they just did what they did to the St. Louis Cardinals, took the series there. And Peralta, man, that dude's throwing really well. But the problem is now they have some injuries. So on the staff, and that's where you wonder how they're going to play coming up, especially with, Pittsburgh, who's on their heels. They're a couple games behind them. But it is early in the season, but it's just great to see them playing with a team that had zero expectations. And you wouldn't have thought going 21 games in that they would be in first place. But this is what we talked about maybe a couple weeks ago about taking advantage now, try to get as many games that you can win as possible to take it, catch some of these teams off guard. So then they have a little cushion for that wild card down the line. So, man, they just got to keep going and bounce back tonight against Pittsburgh. Okay.
And Danny, later this week, we have the NFL draft. About time. Seems like it's been forever since NFL free agency took place. I don't know. The NFL, a few years ago, this went ahead and scheduled the draft to be later. and they switched when free agency and the draft actually occurred, which was totally fine with me from that standpoint. But man, we've gone about a month since the combine, a month since the free agency happened, and so it's about time. Looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a whole lot of trades happening beforehand. Not only that, but Packers look like they have about 5, 6 picks, the most picks in the first 3, 4 rounds. So the most that they've had in quite some time. So looking forward to seeing what the Green Bay Packers do. What about your Falcons, Danny?
So, Jason, we have a first round pick, which is number 8. And then we have 2 third-round picks. So we don't have a second or a fourth. But I'm very curious, man. They keep linking us to Michael Penix. I think at 8 is kind of high. I think if you could trade back and get Penix, then like in the 10, like in the teens, then it makes a little more sense. But they need defense. They need an edge rusher bad. So with Dallas Turner being projected to them, I think that's the move. But you never know with this, man. It's a crapshoot with the draft. I remember Vic Beasley and all the hype with him, and he flamed out. Atlanta, they like to make the fan base go crazy and do things that are a little unorthodox. So we'll see what they do, and I'm looking forward to the draft as well on Thursday night.
And then speaking of your Falcons, Danny, we'll just have to probably end with this note here about your squad. Listen, man, Matty Ice, Matt Ryan, he goes ahead and officially retires from the NFL, signs a 1-day contract with the Falcons to retire as a Falcon. 4-time Pro Bowler, 1-time All-Pro. He was 2016 AP MVP. He has some different accolades, led the Falcons to Super Bowl, has about, 381 touchdowns to 183 interceptions, 62,792 yards, a 65% completion rate. Danny, is Matt Ryan a Hall of Famer?
Jason, this one's tough, man. I think it's a no-brainer if he wins that Super Bowl. What he did for Atlanta and, with the whole Michael Vick thing, when Mike Vick, got into trouble and everything, what he had going on. I don't know, man. Without the Super Bowl, it's tough to put him in. His numbers are great. Don't get me wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And they had, they're in the playoffs a lot. They got to a couple, conference championships as well, besides the Super Bowl. I'm going to say he gets in, but it's going to be like down the line. He's not a first ballot I don't think he's a first ballot at all.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I think his numbers and the winning with Atlanta. So I'm going to say yes, but not first ballot.
Listen, I think this is a tough one. I think that's why he chose to go into media. Definitely not a first ballot. Definitely not a second ballot. I think it's going to be further down the line if he gets in. I think recently there's been some questionable selections into the Hall of Fame, and that's saying a lot regarding the NFL Hall of Fame at that.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're usually pretty straight and spot on. This one's going to be a hard one because if you put Matt Ryan in, I think now the question is, what about Eli Manning?
Which I think Eli Manning should be in.
You're gonna have to debate that one, man. He has 2 rings.
That's the whole point of some of this. We've talked about this in the past. You don't know the criteria. Like, what are they basing it on?
Exactly. So let me ask you this, Danny.
Yeah.
We're doing an impromptu trading card scenario. Who would you take? Matty Ice or Eli? And as you would start off, let me give you some numbers here.
Yeah.
Eli Manning, 57,023 yards, 366 touchdowns to 244 interceptions. He played in 236 games. Mm-hmm. One thing to note there, because at one point in time he was an Iron Man, if you will, and that's to 234 games versus that of Matt Ryan. So they played pretty much the same number of games. As you mentioned, 2 Super Bowls by Eli, to a Super Bowl appearance by Matty Ice. Eli Manning has 4 Pro Bowls, and he's also a Walter Payton Award winner, Man of the Year. Who you got, man?
Just because Eli Manning has the Super Bowls and he's more known. You know, Matt Ryan is, because me as a Falcons fan, I'm near and dear with Matt Ryan, but Eli played in New York. He played with Strahan, Plaxico. You know, he had great defenses, don't get me wrong, and we did not. So that's the other advantage Eli has, but I'm going to have to go with Eli Manning's card, as much as it hurts me to say that, because I just look at, you know, he won the games. Matt Ryan did not win the games. When it counted, Matt Ryan folded. And Eli was able to pull it out as he beat Tom Brady. He beat Aaron Rodgers.
In Green Bay. And that was a Green Bay team that was wicked too, man.
Yes. So he went to Green Bay and did that. So I'm going to go Eli Manning. Jason, how about you?
I'm going Eli. It's tough for me to say that, but the name recognition, the commercials.
Yep.
I think the commercials alone, like Eli doesn't even have to be in media per se. He can just do the commercials with Peyton. And it's golden.
He's built a brand.
The brand is unbelievable in the football world. And you mentioned the Super Bowls, but keep in mind that Super Bowl that they won, that was when New England was going for an undefeated season.
Yep. That
was their one game. So who can forget the helmet catch by David Tyree? You know, and Eli escaping. So those moments right there is going to be etched in everybody's, you know, mind there in terms of Super Bowl highlights. But take the Super Bowls away, Eli is not a Hall of Famer. If you take the Super Bowls away.
He almost got cut.
I think Eli gets in the Hall of Fame. I don't think he's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. But
you better not.
Eli gets in, and therefore I would take his card. Oh, and keep in mind, Eli didn't want to go to San Diego. Remember, he was the number 1 pick. So you have that story, similar story to John Elway not wanting to go to a terrible team. So that's a storyline. That's a 30 for 30. That's a storyline that I have with that card.
Yep.
So I'm going with Eli card.
Thank you for joining us at Back Porch Talk Podcast. You can also join us on Twitter by tweeting us at @back_podcast. For more information, you can go to our website, which is backporchtalkpodcast.com. You can also email us at backporchtalkpodcast@gmail.com. Again, thank you for joining us, and remember that there's enough hate in the world, so go ahead and spread a little love.